Alright, so Final Fantasy VII speedrunning has changed forever. Final Fantasy VII, quite possibly one of the greatest games ever made, one might say. It has been discovered that you can bypass Kalm. You can skip ever going to Kalm, meaning you can skip the entire 20-minute flashback sequence that was previously thought to be required to progress. Welcome to Kalm Skip.
Clam skip!
So in Final Fantasy VII, when you first exit Midgar, you're directed to go northeast to the town of Kalm. And when you get there, you are treated to a lengthy flashback sequence about Cloud's time in Soldier, his trip to Nibelheim with Sephiroth going nuts, burning down the town, stealing Genova's head, and all that. But the thing is, it's a real good story dump, but in the context of a speed run, nothing is gained. It's really just a whole bunch of cutscenes and a little bit of running around. Even the battles are not up to the player because Cloud is super weak and it's all about Sephiroth and how he behaves. So even though there was some pretty cool tech on how to do this part the fastest, using step count and photo skip and all that, it still is not a very consequential part of the run. There's no experience gained, there's no items acquired, there's not even a cool boss battle, right? It is an ideal section of the game to skip, because you don't get anything that you need from it, and depending on how Sephiroth behaved, you could lose several seconds. So we've dreamed of skipping this particular sequence, and now exactly that is a reality. So you might be asking, like, so you want to skip past this sequence, well, how about you just don't go to the town, right? You say there's nothing that you gain there. What happens if you just run past it? Well, great question. What happens is you can run past it, and you can get to the Chocobo farm, you can catch a Chocobo, you can run past the swamp, you can go into the Mithril Mines. However, in the Mithril Mines, which you need to pass through to progress in order to get over to Junon, in the Mithril Mines there is a cutscene that only triggers if you haven't been to Kalm yet, and that trigger turns you around. It says, hey, this isn't where we told the party we were gonna go. We gotta get back to Kalm. The other members are waiting there. And so you cannot get through the mines until you've seen the flashback. So how it's been found to actually skip past Kalm is to also skip past the Mithril Mines by doing a clip on the world map that was just discovered that allows you to pass over this small river and get over to the Junon area. So first, without a technical explanation, let's see what you actually do. So on a Chocobo, you run over to this spot on the map that's right next to the river that you go past, and you dismount the Chocobo. After you do a little bump right here to kind of bump you to the right, it gets it so that you can dismount the Chocobo right onto this specific spot of the map. Then you get back on the Chocobo, and you run up. You run all the way up to about here, and then you run right all the way over to about here, and remember Kalm? We're not going to Kalm, so we at least get to say hi to it. And then you run back to the left and down, and then you run all the way back to that spot where you dismounted, and you might want to do a little bump again, get you into position, and you dismount the Chocobo again, but this time Cloud drops through the floor. And from this spot, drop down through the floor, you just run across. That's it. So what the hell, right? So people always ask, right? People always ask, how does a skip like this get found? How do people find this stuff? And this is one of those times where it was actually discovered before it was understood on a technical level. So this skip was found by Kuma TV. He got video of the clip, and everyone was sent into just a frenzy of figuring out how did he get it, how do we get it consistently, and also why does it work? So to answer the question of how do people find this stuff, I reached out to Kuma, and what he had to say was that basically we've always wanted to skip Kalm. That was the goal in his research, and basically he knew that chocobos were weird. They're a little wonky on the world map because we've actually seen some weird chocobo behavior on the world map and getting Cloud to clip into weird spots before. And so knowing that chocobos are kinda weird, and then finding a sort of consistent clippable spot over by the Mithril Caves, we knew that there is some way that you can get Cloud clipped into the wall. However, you can't move very far once you're clipped. Once you're floating through the geometry and such, you kind of hit a lot of invisible walls and become stuck a lot, very easily. And so you can't move very far once you're clipped. So Kuma took this knowledge of knowing that you can clip and knowing that you can't move very far and found the spot on the world map that would take the smallest amount of movement when clipped in order to get past. And since he knew roughly how to clip over on the cave side, it was at that point just a matter of brute forcing it. He said he thought it had to do with bonking on different objects. We didn't know about how you were supposed to move around, just that you have to dismount once, get back on, move around and do something to get the game to do something, and then come back and dismount again. And after a while, he found it. So we then got into, like I was saying, just a frenzy of some people looking into how to set it up consistently, again, sort of by brute force, because we didn't understand why exactly it was happening, so we just had to try stuff until we got it more consistently. Meanwhile, Mav and Ace Zephyr were looking into the game's code and trying to find a technical explanation of why this happens. And so, let's hear from Zephyr why this actually happens.
So, every object, including Cloud, stores pointers to the last 6 triangles they've stood on.
So, by triangles, he's referring to the fact that you move on a mesh made of triangles. Here's the entire world map of all of the triangles that it's made of.
When checking for what triangle you're on any given frame, the game first looks at those triangle pointers. When you get on the Chocobo, Cloud's triangle pointers stop updating, but they do stay in memory. When you get off the Chocobo, the game first checks Cloud's stored triangle pointers. However, the world map loads and unloads parts. It has an array with 32 slots that can each hold one world map section, and the order that they are stored in is not consistent. That means that when you unload the area you get off the Chocobo at and reload it and go back there, the polygons you're on are in a different point in memory. Cloud's stored triangle pointers are no longer pointing to the triangle data they expect. Instead, with the current Kalm skip setup, they're pointing to vertex data for the region to the right.
It's like if you had a deck of cards and you want to store the Ace of Zephyrs, the Ace of Spades, 32 cards down, right? You remember, okay, I'm putting this 32 cards down in this stack here. But before you reclaimed it later, right, you went off and you did something, and behind your back, someone shuffled the deck, right? So you come back and you grab your 32nd card, and what the hell? It's an Uno card now!
The game uses the pointer anyway, and uses whatever it reads there as triangle data. The game passes all the checks that say Cloud should be able to stand on it, and so he does.
So when he's referring to these regions on the world map, here is a grid of all of the regions, only some of which are ever loaded at any given time, depending on where you are. So that's why your movement after the first dismount is important to load these different regions in a certain order. So in this video that Mav posted, inspecting this triangle data, we can see that at this moment is when Cloud's triangles update with the new data. And then here they update again. This movement manipulates the data shuffling to a bunch of zeros here. So this randomish data is what the game reads and interprets as a triangle that Cloud's able to stand on, and also its Y position is 0. Thus, Cloud warps down to 0 on the y-axis. And from there, you can run straight across to the other side and straight to Junon. Why exactly you can run across here is beyond me. Sorry, I don't know why he floats across the air like this, but it happens to be perfect. In fact, a lot of stuff about this skip is perfect. Like, I just love the fact that it's the Kalm skip, but we have to run to Kalm in order to get it to work. Or also that Chocobos are back in style now. And now, speaking of things that just, like, happen to work out perfectly like that, and also speaking of Chocobos, the particularly astute of you may be thinking, hang on, what's with this dialogue box? I've never seen that. And at this point in Final Fantasy VII, you can't keep a Chocobo that you catch. It's wild. So when you dismount it, it runs away. But here, Cloud tells it to stay? What's the deal with that?
Well, my friends, enter the Chocobo glitch,
which is required for this Kalm skip setup. So let's rewind a little bit here. I mentioned earlier that if you run straight past Kalm, you can catch a Chocobo and you can use it to pass the swamp. Now, the developers did not intend for players to be able to pass the swamp without a Chocobo. You are supposed to have to get a Chocobo to be able to cross the swamp. Now, we've figured out how to do it without a Chocobo, and so Chocobos haven't been in style for a long time. Now, because the intention was that you needed a Chocobo, though, and they did want players to be able to get to the Mithril Mines before Kalm if they wanted to, and have this cutscene turn them around, they included this feature where only before you visit Kalm, if you dismount a Chocobo on this patch of grass, Cloud will tell it to stay. That way, you get turned around in the caves, you come back out, boom, there's your Chocobo for you to be able to get back across the marsh with. You're not stuck because it ran away. So, this bit in memory is a flag for whether this dismount property is active. It activates when you hit any of these triangles on the grass marsh, and it deactivates when you hit any of these triangles while returning. So the trick is we gotta somehow keep this flag active on the other side of the marsh. How do we do that? Well, when you encounter the Midgar Zolom, after the encounter, you're teleported to the last patch of ground you stepped on, right? Wrong! Observe this bit in memory. This stores which side of the swamp you teleport to after the encounter. A 1 sends you to the barn side, while 0 sends you to the cave side. But you may notice it actually updates when you step off the grass. So this means when you step onto the cave side grass, the Chocobo Stay dismount flag activates, and the swamp teleport bit still says to teleport you to the barn side. So if we could get into a fight with the Zolom while still on the grass, we're set. And that's exactly what we can do. It turns out the Midgar Zolom's hit detection for an encounter extends slightly past the edge of the grass when he bumps into it. So we can actually run across the marsh, baiting the Zolom to follow us, and then step barely onto the grass and allow him to hit us, and voila! This will teleport us back to the barn side with the Chocobo dismount flag still active, and we have a Chocobo we can dismount anywhere at this part of the game. And so there you have it. The full scope of the skip is: you exit Midgar with at least 2100 Jill. You need 2000 for the Chocobo lure materia and 100 for some greens to catch a Chocobo with. I recommend putting Restore on Barret or Tifa here so you can recover from the Zolom strikes and still have MP on Cloud to cast Bio on Bottom's Well, but that's optional. Now, just run straight to the Chocobo farm and purchase those items from Choco Billy. Equip Choco Lure, switch your ATB to wait for catching a Chocobo. Then, catch a Chocobo. Run to the Mithril Caves, and when you dismount here, it's a great time to put ATB back to active. Run into the cave, pick up long range, exit the caves, and get back on the Chocobo. It's also worth noting that when you go into the caves to pick up long range, you don't need to skip the Zolom cutscene with the menu buffer anymore, because even if you do, you'll just hit the cutscene on the way out. There's no way to skip the cutscene coming out of the cave if you skipped it on the way in. So then run back to the barn side grass of the swamp, and then back onto the swamp to set the flag to teleport you to the barn. Lead the Zolan behind you, step up onto that grass to activate the Chocobo dismount flag and let the Zolan hit you. Boom, dismountable Chocobo achieved. Then run over to the clip spot southwest of Midgar. Dismount the Chocobo with Cloud landing on this triangle for Cloud. Get back on the Chocobo. Make this run to load a bunch of map regions in a particular order that results in zeroing out Cloud's triangle pointers. Return to this triangle and dismount again. Cloud drops under, and you run straight across. And there you have it. The legendary, mythical, Kalm skip is a reality that you will now see in speedruns. It's insane. It's crazy. It's actually a real thing now. So I mentioned earlier that there's nothing that you actually get in Kalm making this an ideal skip, but once again, the particularly astute of you may be asking, well, what about PHS? After the flashback sequence, as you're leaving the inn, that's when the game gives you the PHS, which is how you switch party members at will in the game. Well, another example of why this skip is just so perfect and every little detail of it works out so nicely is the fact that when you get to Junon and you are about, after you fight Bottomswell, when you are about to do that dolphin jump to get up into the Shinra Parade, Barrett takes the PHS away from you at that point. He says like he doesn't want it to get wet or something, and then gives it back to you on the other side of the boat trip. When you get to Costa del Sol, he gives you the PHS back, and that still works. So with skipping Kalm and not getting the PHS, it just means you don't have PHS to fight Bottomswell and to fight Genova. But it doesn't even matter with the Genova fight because the game just automatically asks you to assemble your party at that point anyway, without the use of PHS, and then you just have it back after that boss fight. So it's a total non-issue. The only change that this makes in the speedrun is that you have to fight Bottomswell with Tifa and Barrett, which is what people did anyway. I mean, honestly, on the traditional speedrun route, people didn't even use PHS until, like, after the Demon's Gate fight or something. So it wouldn't have even been that big of an issue if we never got it back. But hey, you don't even have to worry about it. And this leads us now to the question of what is next for Final Fantasy VII speedrunning. Honestly, this bug, this exploit with the Chocobo is kind of scary. It's almost ace when you think about it. You know, arbitrary code execution. You know, the stuff that results in a speedrun being some very odd sequence of movements to manipulate memory values to then cause the game to do something like warp you straight to the credits? It's very similar to that, where we are manipulating a memory value that the game then reads later in order to do something that the game didn't intend. And we've already proven that you can corrupt these ground triangles to actually become things like doors to different areas. And it's almost like the Pandora's box of skips here that we've found, where who knows what is going to be able to be achieved with this bug right now. We can skip Kalm, and that's awesome, because like I said, skipping Kalm is an ideal skip in this speedrun. It's awesome. Everyone likes it. Everyone's happy. But if it gets to the point of something like, if it gets to the point of like corrupting a ground triangle so that when you step on it, it warps you to the credits, right? Then that means that we're seeing a new category forming, you know? We're gonna have to start having the ace versus no ace category or that kind of thing. Right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be that crazy because it seems to be very dependent on the region data, and the regions on the world map are quite small, so we're not sure if we can do anything that gets you, that can teleport you any farther than a region. But, I mean, we're right in the middle of it right now, and research is still being done on it, and we can only wait and see what the hell happens next here, because Kalm skip is awesome. We just wanted to skip Kalm. But potentially, what have we done here?